Hey, today we are continuing in our series, A Legendary Love, and today we're doing something, a lot different actually. Our subject for today, remember we've talked about love and sex and commitment. Today we're talking about problems in marriage and problems in relationship, which is a fun topic, right, guys? Yeah, okay.
My in-laws, by the way.
Yeah. So you may get all kinds of stuff today. So what we've done is we've employed and enlisted these lovely folks here to come help us today, because I don't want to stand up here and talk about this for half an hour. So they're going to help us talk about problems in marriage in kind of a panel style today. We've actually thrown 7 different subject areas out to them with some questions for them to look over. And so we're going to talk about those. We probably will not get through all of them because I know that, I'm going to check our time. Okay. The preschool workers are going to go, you went way too long. So I can't have that. So we have to have happy preschool workers. So we'll kind of keep it to about half an hour or so. But we're excited. What we're going to start off with, we're just going to introduce ourselves to you, tell folks a little bit about how long you've been married, maybe if you got a little funny story about how you met or something like that, throw that in there, kids, whatever, too. So we're Dave and Luann, Elledge. We met in North Carolina, of all places. She's from here, and I was from Illinois. And, of course, you would meet in North Carolina because it just makes sense, right? Because it's way over there. So anyway, we met there in May of 1980. So it kind of tells you a little bit how old we are. So, really old, yeah.
Really.
So, so that was kind of fun, wasn't it? Back then, way back then. And so we have been married for 30...
No, we haven't.
40 some years. Math is not my good thing. Math is not
43 years.
43 years.
Almost. Yeah.
So there you go. 3 kids, 7 grandkids, and we're just excited to be here. So.
Dogs. We got
dogs, yeah, 1,000 dogs.
He did get that right. Yeah,
did get that right. So, and one thing we were talking about putting our panel together, one thing we said, we're not going to have our kids up here with us, but we ended up with a couple of our kids up here, so Brandon and Lyndsee.
Oh, yes. We're the Moons. I'm Brandon. This is Lyndsee. We've been married 13 years. We met at Three Rivers College, where you dream big. And that was in 2008, I think. Is that right? And what else do we have? We have 2 kids. We have lived in the area for a long time. Both taught at the Bluff School District for a long time. I still teach there. But she's a Puxico supporter now. And what else are we supposed to discuss? We have 1 dog. He lives outside.
We're the Gilmores, Curtis or Scott and Manuela Gilmore.
Hold that mic up.
Sorry.
There you go.
We're the Gilmores. My name's Scott. This is Manuela Gilmore, wife. We, I pray all the time. You think that'd be good down there. But anyway, we met in 1994 in Germany. I was stationed over there in the Army. Met in 1994, got married in 96. We have 2 kids, Madeline and Kai. Maddie, as a lot of you know her, Maddie and Kai. Moved back here back in 2008, came to the Bluff Church in 2010. Been going ever since. Love the church. What else do you know about us? Really don't know how we met. That's kind of an inconfidential thing, so... But no, we met at a nightclub actually in Germany. Sorry, we changed our ways a little bit since then. It's the '90s, but yeah, just glad to be here.
Andy and Anna Luke, been together. Let me get my calculator real quick. No. Been together 23 years, and long time. But we've got 4 boys and 1 dog. Currently, but within a week we should have puppies, so it's going to be wild. If anybody needs to buy, plug. No. Funny story about how we met was like we met, I was pretty young, and I'm a big guy, you can tell. So she was actually taller than me by like a foot when we met the first time, and so the attraction wasn't really there, but that changed.
Either way.
Yeah, either way. I was such a little guy, it was pretty sad, so... That's just kind of a funny story, but been married 17 years. So
Good deal. All right.
Happily.
So we're going to jump right into this with probably the easiest thing to talk about as a couple is that people never have problems with is money. Right? It's actually the number one thing that couples tend to argue about. So share, and of course, share the microphone with your spouse, men. In what ways have you seen money become a problem in marriage? And, how have you seen that play out in your marriage or maybe in somebody else's where it's been a problem? Anybody jump in?
Okay, I'm just gonna. So every relationship has problems. So finances obviously are one of the biggest concerns. But I would say to combat that, right, is just we strive to live a godly life and try to do everything that we do with God being the center of our focus. And so early on in our marriage, obviously we're struggling. Every couple struggles, and you're learning a lot of things about each other and whatnot. But I think one thing we did right off the bat was, we wanted to tithe. We wanted that to be a focus that we had, and that's something that we never argued about. And I just think that's really cool to just point out. When we talk about problems, it's that alleviates a lot of problems. When you put God first in what you're doing and you're both on the same page in that regard, I think that's a huge role. One story I have, so obviously we struggled early on, but in our later years, I just think it's cool how God shows us that the person that He had for you, and that she is my person that He picked for me, and that is there was a situation where I felt like God was calling me to use my finances in a way that I would give to someone else. Specifically, I'm not going to say, but within the week, I hadn't said anything to her, and within the week, she comes to me and says, wouldn't it be cool if we did this for this situation? And I was just man, that is such a God moment in our finances, and to be able to know that I'm with the person that God had for me, and that we're equally yoked. When you talk about being equally yoked with our partner, just a super awesome God moment in our marriage that stands out to me. So
Good.
Dave, we never really had that problem. We never had any money, so we don't have money issues.
We get that, yeah.
We're kind of the same way with Andy. When we first started raising our children, it's tough. Everybody knows out there that it's tough raising kids, trying to give them new shoes and this and that and so on and so forth. I agree with Andy. Tithing should be number one on our list because God's going to give back. If you tithe like you're supposed to, even if you tithe just a little bit, He's going to show you how He can multiply that money and or whatever it may be, not just money, just anything, to grow. So I don't know. It's tough going through life as you get older. Like Andy said, it's not just about giving money to the church. It could be giving something to somebody. It could be helping somebody along the way because everybody struggles through life. So it could be anything, not just tithing. But money in general is, as we know, is the evil of all things. So make sure you tithe. You got anything to add?
No, you just said it all.
I'm a minimalist, and so sometimes that gets me in trouble around Christmas and birthdays and whatnot. But we learned to do without early on. Our parents taught us to give to the church and to causes, so that came fairly easy. We've had some moments in our marriage of when, I don't want to use the word wasteful spending, but excess spending is deemed necessary or okay or easy to throw into the wind. But we're figuring that out. Do you have anything to add?
I think one of our biggest issues was when I was growing up, my parents gave us all cars when we were old enough to have a car, which I have found out that is not real common. I didn't ever really appreciate that. And so when Dave was growing up, he was when we had our kids, he was like, well, we're not going to buy them a car. They're going to have to work and get their own car. And I was like, no, we buy them a car because they're just kids and they can't work and make a car. Well, Dave I don't know if y'all know this about Dave, but he's kind of a workaholic. I mean, I know that's shocking to some of you, but, he started working when he was 12, even before that, because he had a paper route when he was a little kid, and that was just the thing in their family. If you wanted a car, you bought your own car. Well, we bought our kids' cars. So, but, it's just little stuff like that the way I was raised, the way he was raised, and then we have to kind of work through that. And we're kind of like everybody else. We never really had money, so it was, I guess one of our biggest issues was who's going to pay the bills, like who has to deal with that, because I hate it and he hates it, but, which one of us hates it least to do it?
Way to put it.
All right. Our next one is on disagreements, okay? So, disagreements.
Missed something.
How do we deal with disagreements? And I think, again, a lot of that goes back to how did our parents disagree with one another? And in my house, it was yelling. Yelling, screaming, cussing, throwing things. That's how you dealt with a disagreement. And so when we first got married and we had our first disagreement, he wouldn't yell at me. And I thought, we're done. We are done. We cannot be married because he will not fight. And if we can't fight, we can't work this out. So, I learned really quickly. He was like, I'm not going to talk to you when you're acting like that. And so I had to learn to back off and let him, we had to take some time, which was great because I've learned to do that. But honestly, I just thought, well, we can't be married anymore because he won't work things out with me. But I had to learn that you need to back up and calm down and then talk about it. And I was never taught that, so it'll be interesting to see what she has to say.
Well, I don't remember seeing many fights, so I just didn't know how to do that. I hate conflict. Conflict makes me very anxious, and so we definitely come from different backgrounds on how to take care of conflict. So I need lots and lots of time and space to think about what it is I want to say.
She's
and
my
what,
kid.
yeah. And so he likes to talk about it, and he wants to talk about it fast, and I can't do that. I have to have time and just decide how I actually feel about it before I share it. So.
I grew up with the motto, life short, eat dessert first. So get the argument out in the open and discuss it, move on. Our family was 6 people in the house. He who spoke loudest got to be heard. And so I've had to learn how to try to accommodate that situation. I'm still learning. But you have to take the other person into consideration and do take a moment to step back to consider what you're saying, how you're saying it, and go from there.
I never really heard my parents fighting growing up. And when we have like an argument or disagreement, I pretty much step out the room and go back to the bedroom. He stays in the living room. About 10 minutes later, we pretty much kind of talk about it and make up again, that's what we usually do.
As I was growing up, my parents had 3 kids, and so you're so busy with raising your kids and working and all that comes with those responsibilities. I don't remember them really ever arguing in front of us. They probably handled it a lot behind closed doors, and if I had to guess, they probably didn't handle a lot of it at all. They just swept stuff under the rug, which I feel like can be equally as harmful in a marriage. So it's very important, to talk it out. And so me and Andy, we have 4 kids, so we don't have really much time alone to discuss, because kids are everywhere at our house. And so, I like to talk it out, and he's not so much, of that nature. And so I would say that my favorite, and this is a joke in our marriage, my favorite place to talk is in the car where he can't get away from me. So that's just something that, anytime we're in a car, I'm sure he holds his breath.
While I'm driving. So
Hey, it seems to work out for us, so.
You know, on my behalf, what my wife was saying a while ago about us fighting, like I told you a while ago, we've been married almost 28 years, and we fought, not really fought, just argued, maybe I can count on one hand how many times we argued, because we just take it, you know, like she says, communicate with each other and just work it out. You just can't get mad at each other and blow up and, oh, I'm getting divorced, I'm leaving with the kids or whatever. You just can't do that in life. You got to be calm about it and just work things out with one another. So, yeah, we hardly ever fight, and tell you the truth.
Good. Anybody have a good fight story you want to share before we move on? Andy does.
well, so there was this one time. No, I'm just kidding. No, I have naturally I can get angry, and that's maybe something from genetics or whatever, but it's something that I have to be careful with. And you know, our first year of marriage, there's a lot to take in. You know, you're learning each other. You're trying to figure out what it looks like to be a family and, you know, to be married and to, you know, share this life with somebody else. And she does like to talk it out. And so in a vehicle, there's not like a way to get away from a situation. And so like I feel like what that does is I learned early on that, like, you know, I don't want to get angry, and I don't want to let my anger, you know, own the situation, especially in front of our kids, or even just between the two of us. So that first year of marriage, you know, it was a lot of learning for me. And so car situations, I can see kind of like, I can feel those moments kind of like getting I don't know how do you want to say that, but it kind of amps me up a little bit. And so I've honestly learned that when I can see those situations coming, you know, I'm like, you know, I've legitimately just had to say, hey, let's just slow down. Let's talk about this at another time. Let's wait till we get home. Let's breathe a little bit. And so that's something I know that has helped me not let the moment kind of get so riled up in myself, and just understand that I have issues that I need to deal with just like everybody. And so that's a way that I kind of protect us. So.
Okay. Good. Let's switch gears now to parenting. Parenting, let's talk about, have you had any conflict over the way that you parent your children as a couple? I mean, like internal conflict between the two of you? And if so, how'd you resolve that?
You know, thinking, everybody probably thinks, yeah, this guy's an Army guy, he's a big tough guy and all that stuff, but actually it's actually the opposite with our marriage. She's the bad cop, I'm the good cop. You know, whenever our kids are young, I was always, oh, you know, do this, do that, and so on and so forth. Whereas she was like, the German came out, and it's like, you're getting drilled for sure. So yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of how our marriage went. You know, sometimes I had to be a little stern, so on and so forth. But for the most part, she was the one that was the discipliner in our family.
I mean, I really had to, because he was gone most of the time. So, and when you work full time, have 2 kids, take to daycare, and have to run the household and pay the bills and do everything, you got to be strict, and you have to tell them kids, okay, there's the rules. We need to do that. When we're done with all that, then we can have fun. So, and it was hard when he was home. Everything got thrown out of order.
Anybody else?
I'd say I like to take immediate action, and Lyndsee likes to put them in their room and think about things and reassess the situation. I am around him, I think, quite a bit more, and so there are good times where I'll say, Tag, you're it, have at him.
I think I always lean towards mercy, but I think we also work on consequences, and it's been a good learning process to see how that works.
Well, I think for us, as far as parenting, I think I was kind of, again, one that had to be the bad guy, and because he did, you know, I stayed home, and I also homeschooled my kids for quite a while, so I was the one that was there, And I'll never forget, there came a time when we had this dog that we had to get rid of. I mean, it was like either the dog goes or one of the kids
That
is
was
going.
the phone call I got.
Yeah,
Hey, the dog goes or the kid goes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, there was 2 different dogs, but anyway,
Oh, okay.
one of them was Lyndsee's dog, and years later, she was like, said something about me getting rid of the dog, and I said, well, Lyndsee, you know that was not just my decision. I mean, we talked about it and said, yeah, we have to give this dog up. I mean, I was home all day and dealing with it, so but we did talk about it, and she's like, oh, well, I never knew that. So, so a lot of times I appeared to be the bad guy in this situation, but, the kid's not necessarily knowing that, yeah, we did talk about it and made the decision, but I was the one that I guess had to carry out that decision. So, yeah, still mad at you about
Sorry
that.
about that.
Anyway.
Okay, switch gears. Expectations. Let's talk about expectations for a minute. Think back when you first got married, or maybe when you were dating. Were there expectations that you brought into the relationship that maybe once you got married, did that change at all?
I think in our instance, we, got married so young that I didn't even know what my own expectations were for marriage or anything like that. But I do think, as we've grown together as a couple, and I feel like in a sense we've grown up together, I've learned that, unspoken expectations will almost always be unmet expectations, because I do find myself a lot. I have these expectations in my mind of, various things, like in the morning before I go to work, I might see dishes in the sink, and in my head, I have this expectation that he's going to do the dishes before I get home, or, whatever that might be. And now he does a lot around the house, but just thinking, that specific thing, and I might come home and the dishes are still in the sink, and immediately, all these negative thoughts start filling my mind, and, oh, well, he doesn't really care about me because he didn't do the dishes for me today, and it's just like a spiral. But in all reality, I didn't ask him to do the dishes. If I had asked, he probably would have. So I just think learning that process and how that works, and not letting, if I expect him to do something, then I probably need to communicate that to him. So.
Good answer.
Amen. I'm just kidding.
I think Lyndsee had expectations before we got married. She would say it took too long to get married. But when we did, I certainly had unspoken expectations about the home setup. I'm not the guy that goes hunting or four-wheelering or whatever else. Changing the oil, things like that are not for me. I do the cooking. I do the cleaning. So I had certain expectations that if I do all of these, I just assume you're going to see that, certain other things need to be taken care of. We didn't have a yard at the time, so I didn't expect her to mow. Now we do, and she's been on the mower once or twice and didn't run off the hill, but there were things to figure out in the home setup.
Anybody else? Nope. Gonna do a stress question.
Move on. Okay. A lot of times too, well, we all experience stress, in our jobs, in our marriages, in our parenting, and just, life. So how do you personally deal with stress yourself? How do you deal with stress?
I will answer that one.
Okay.
I get quiet, or I want to do something physical. Like when I used to work at a church that had a gymnasium in it, if I would get stressed out at work, you would find me in the gym shooting baskets, because that's how I got processed through that stress, by shooting. That's what I do it. But, we don't have a gym here, so sometimes if I get stressed out at work, you'll see me walking around the building. Or out here, it's getting quiet and sometimes getting physical for me.
And I'm just the opposite. I want to take a nap. When I get stressed out and I can't deal with things, I just want to go to my room and be quiet and be by myself. If I can take a an hour-long nap, wake up, and then I'm ready to take care of things. I can't deal with it right then. So.
I think this goes back to like what you would maybe say the males like want to fix things necessarily.
Yeah.
And so like if I get stressed out and it's between us or within the family with the kids and whatnot, I'm kind of like, I'm a hands-on guy. So I feel like what kind of gets me out of that stressful situation or helps me to feel better is like to see a job completed, you know. And so I just go to work. I mean, I'll shut down, you know, vocally, and I'll just get to work, and I feel like that helps me get through and push through whatever it is, and gives me time to work it out with myself, I guess.
Kind of
But
process it.
yeah.
Well, I like to talk about it. I want everybody to hear and be a listener so that they can understand, be sympathetic to what I'm maybe going through. And then I do enjoy tinkering or working in the yard, kind of a stress reliever.
You know, one thing we do whenever we come home at night, once she does get home from night, she's a dental assistant. Sometimes she'll come home till 7 o'clock at night. I'm already home at 4:30. But every night we'll ask how each other's day went. Some are stressful than others. You know, she may have 5 patients, whatever, and a lot of issues going on that day. And I may have a lot of problems going on at work as well, too. But, you know, I'm like Dave and I'm like Andy as well. You know, if I'm really stressed out, I go to the gym in the mornings, or I'll go wash a car, I'll work on the deck, or whatever it may be, just taking my minds off things just to relieve that stress. And her, on the other hand, she'll tell you, she'll sit on the couch and crochet, just kind of relieve, you know, take all that off of her as well. So I think that's an important thing, just to have something, a hobby or some type, or a way to get away, like Luann said, just get away and just get rid of that stress out of your system.
Okay, let's kind of switch a little bit to anger. So sometimes we deal with it, not many of us, but some of us deal with anger. Okay. How do you all, are you similar? Are you different in how you deal with anger in your relationship? And is that, you know, how have you learned to cope with that, just manage that within your relationship?
I have a big problem about getting angry at times. I'd like to say I'm thinking through that and taking a moment to assess situations. In high school, I had a very short fuse. And when we got married, I didn't have very long of a fuse. And we are talking about that more and how I can handle situations, especially around the kids. Sometimes excitement and anger, I think, in my situation, get confused. One day I was rooting for the Blues, and I start yelling and jumping, and Emmy starts crying at 18 months old because she thought I was upset. I used to coach volleyball, and that's not a great thing for anger situations, probably, junior high girls too. And some people had a hard time seeing me yelling and cheering them on versus, you know, yelling in a corrective action, I guess, kind of way. Whereas Lyndsee doesn't do much yelling at all.
I didn't know I could be angry until I got married and had children.
Because her childhood was so wonderful.
But once you have kids, things get very different, and just it's a lot. And so it's definitely something I've had to figure out as getting older, because I really don't remember ever yelling as a young adult until we got married and had kids. And but always I just need time. That's what I need.
I forgot one thing. We learned problems in marriage here. We learned me behind the wheel of a car. There are a lot of less competent drivers out there that don't use their turn signal or etc. And it was the night that I was going to propose to Lyndsee. I had a big blow up, and I didn't think she'd say yes because she saw that side of me, and I'm like, oh. That's why it took 2 years, so you could see all the sides of me. But we're still facing those issues.
I mean, when I get angry, like he knows, I pretty much, like we said with disagreements, I just disappear into the bedroom for 10 minutes and to cool down, and then we talk it out.
When I get angry, I tend to cry. I'm not really a yeller. My kids might say different, I don't know. But I don't, you know, it's kind of my release is to just cry. So I'll just, you know, go to my room and shut the door and cry and, you know, that kind of thing. But I do feel like Andy and I handle it differently, like, situations with the kids or whatever it might be, where I just, find myself getting super angry for whatever reason, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's just gonna lose it. And then he's like, oh, it's no big deal. Or vice versa. So I feel like we complement each other well when it comes to that, and just, we're just different, and that's kind of the beauty of a marriage, I think.
I think, too, again, I'm going to go back to a lot of times you express your anger the way you saw it expressed as a child. And I've already told you, my household was pretty volatile at times. And so yelling and, screaming was just part of it. And that's another thing I want to say is if that is how you deal with it, you can change. I am proof of that. I spent a lot of time, because whenever I had my kids, I was like, I'm not going to raise my children the way I was raised. I am not going to do that. And when I saw myself do that a time or two, I was like, no. And I spent a lot of time in prayer and just asking God to change me. And, because I am a counselor, I'm a school counselor, and I hear kids say all the time, well, that's just the way I am. I'm like, no, it doesn't work. You can't do that. You have the power, well, with God's help, to change that. And so I'm much different than I used to be. And, I just thank God for that, because I just made that decision that that's not the way it was going to be at my house.
I think I would second that, because it's naturally part of my deep down rooted in, and I just gotta, in those times, like the song we sang before, I wrote down the verse, so I made sure I said something about it, because it's such a vital part of our marriage and our family. And it's like, I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. And it's like every family has storms, every marriage has storms, and we're going to go through storms. But just to put our focus on Him and what He has, like what His plan is for our life, for our marriage, and stuff like that, and focus on that. And ultimately, we're going to get through it. And that's just the important thing, is to put Him first, and to make sure if He's not, that's when we're going to struggle, and that's when we're really going to have some serious issues in our marriage. So.
And on the other side of anger is forgiveness. So the question is, are you willing to accept forgiveness? And are you willing to ask for forgiveness? Because sometimes that's hard. When you know that you've done wrong, and, to have to go to your spouse or your child and say, I was wrong, and I need you to forgive me. And then are you willing to accept that? A lot of times it's like, okay, but then we bring that back up.
Yeah, that's the thing, we've got to let it go.
Yeah, you have to let it go. And that's hard sometimes. And so, and again, I think that that's one of those things with God's help. We have to, we can't continue to bring that up. It's like if you've forgiven that person, then it's done, it's over, and you move on. So, which leads us to communication. Communication.
Last question.
All right. So, I don't know. How many of you out there are married? Okay, bunch of you. All right. So, how many of you have, when you were dating or first married, you'd go out to eat and you'd see a couple sitting there, and they're just sitting there not talking? They're just looking at each other. Or now, unfortunately, it's the phone. But, did you ever just go, oh, that will never be us? Did you ever do that? Because I can remember Dave and I talking about, oh, wonder what's going on. Like, they're not even talking to each other. They're just sitting there. And now it's kind of like we go out and it's like,
It's us.
it's us. We're that person. We're that couple that just sits there. But, and I think a lot of that is because, when you're dating and everything, it's kind of, you're just getting to know each other. And so you do have a lot of to talk about. And then later on, it's that familiarity. It's like you don't have to talk if you don't need to, Sometimes it's okay to just sit and just enjoy the quiet. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, how do you guys communicate with each other? How do you, and how do you keep communication open, the lines open.
Well, like I said earlier, whenever we come home from work, whatever time we do get home from work, we try to ask each other how our days went, whether it be good or bad, and just talk to each other. Going out to eat the same way, even though we've been married for 28 years, we still try to communicate with one another and just see how each other's lives are doing. And see if we could help them in any way or they could help you in any way. I think that's very important. Praying together, I think that's very important as well. Communication, as we all know, is a big, big factor in the world we live in. Because like Luann said, most of the time you go to a restaurant, everybody's on their phones. No matter where you go, not just in a restaurant, no matter where you go, everybody's got that phone stuck in their face and they won't talk to each other. Back in the old days, we actually would talk to each other. You'd have a family meal and nobody had no phones out because we didn't have phones. So we didn't have that problem. We actually talked to each other. You'll come into an office or something like that. Like I came into an office the other day at work, and that's when the internet went down. And these guys are in there. I come in and they're all like lumps on a log, like, what do we do? I said, you guys can talk to each other. It is legal to talk to each other, so talk. So yeah, communication is a big part of our lives.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to, we got married at 19 and 21, and so we were just learning all about, communication and just being open with each other. I feel like as we've gotten older and, we've been married for 17 years now, now we're kind of at the point where if something's bothering us, we're just going to say it. Obviously in a respectful way, but, it's just kind of, if we don't know that something's bothering our spouse or, that something needs to be dealt with, then it's just going to fester and, resentment's going to grow and things that just don't need to be there are going to, have room in your heart to just destroy things. And so communicating those things and just being open with your spouse. And I feel like, we have 4 kids, so just having that time to communicate is not very often. So you have to be intentional about making time whenever it can be. If we get up earlier than them in the mornings and drink our coffee and talk, or, sometimes we go down in the basement and work out and I'm running and he's working out, and we're not really talking, but, we're just being together. So I just think that's important. In a marriage, and just making sure that you're being open with each other and there's no secrets and, you're telling each other how you feel.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think just, and for me, it's very hard. And Brandon knows if I'm quiet for a really long time, it's going to be big for me. And it may not be big for him, but it is for me. And so just building up that time just to say, and be honest and just open with whatever's going on. And we've had times when I just appreciate, if I think, oh, he's not going to like what I have to say to him, but he always takes it very well and we talk about it, and it always feels better after we communicate. And I think like what expectations we talked about earlier is if you don't say it, they won't know. And then I've had that in the past. If I didn't tell him I wanted something and then it didn't happen, and then I'm mad at him and he was like, well, you didn't tell me. And I'm like, oh, well, you should just know. But you can't do that. They don't just know. I don't know what he needs if he doesn't tell me, and he doesn't know what I need.
I'll go back to speak up, speak out. It's kind of how I grew up, and we differ strongly in that. I don't like awkward silence or any silence, really. So if we are at a restaurant or et cetera, I just ramble on, and she sometimes feels like I've controlled the conversation, and I just want to keep something going. So if I don't hear anything, I assume I need to fill in. And at first I thought, we complement each other so well. I'm the talker, she's the listener, but I know every so often I have to be the listener and she needs to be allowed to talk, and I have to wait a minute.
So I know if there's some things going on in our life and we haven't talked in a while, sometimes that line of communication will be a text message around like 9 o'clock after she's went to work and I've kind of started my day, and I'll usually get that text message about 9 o'clock.
I love to write, and so I feel like I kind of like, push that into my text messages sometimes.
But the important part is like she's communicating her thoughts and expectations with me, and the length of the message, I know that this is something that means a lot to her, and so I know with a lot of maturity in the years that we've been together, I know like we're gonna have to talk about it tonight. So, yeah.
Good. All right. One last question, and you don't have to do anything, but is there any other piece of anything else you'd like to share with folks on your insights on dealing with conflict problems in marriage? You'd just like to share with anybody? If not, we'll move on.
I'd just like to say, I don't know if you're making this available, but it was a good thing for us to sit down and converse, reflecting 13 years or however many years, people have known each other. It's good to kind of take that time to refocus and think through it. A little plug to small groups. Ours, ironically, I didn't know what Mason was going to be speaking on this month and et cetera, but we've been going through home life situations, marriage, family, leadership of a male role in a very degrading male role society. You look at sitcoms and the guy is supposed to be the one that screws up, and we often do, but how we can be better husbands and parents.
It's a good idea. We'll put the questions that we sent them, we'll put them on Facebook or something, so y'all can look at those, and that may be of help to you. All right, I just want to close with this one verse. We're going to do John 13, 34, and 35. So this is a verse, a lot of times when I do, and I changed this probably about, maybe about 10 years ago when I do a wedding. This is a verse that a lot of times we think about as a verse kind of to the church and to us as Christians, but I kind of flipped my focus. It is that, yes, absolutely, but it's also a verse that works for couples, for marriage too, because as you read this verse, Jesus was, this was the very end. This is one of the last things he told his disciples before he went to the cross. This is the Last Supper. And he said, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you are also to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples if you have love one for another." There's no better way, there's no clearer communication that God has for the gospel to get out than the communication between husband and wife. It's a perfect picture of Christ and his church. And so to me, that verse talks about the idea that as a couple, we should be communicating by our love and our respect and the way that we deal with problems to the world, that this is what Christ looks like. So, yeah, take that to you. So would you give a round of applause to our panel today? We appreciate them. Good job, guys. We're going to pray, and you can leave the mics back there if you would. They're going to need them here in just a minute. We're going to pray, and then the band's going to come back up. All right. Father God, we thank you so much today for the chance to be together as a church, and Father, just to openly share about issues that we have, problems, anger, conflicts, parenting styles, Father, things that we all deal with, but just thank you so much that we can know that you have a plan, and you have for us just a way for us to deal with that, and that's what that verse in John 13 just talked about, Father. That's love, loving each other, and as a couple, no matter what comes out, we can lay those things aside and allow you to work in and through us, so that as we deal with conflict and we deal with problems, that is a perfect picture in our love and our respect and that we have for each other, for the world to see Christ living in and through us. Father, we love you, and we pray that as we head into this final song today, you will just give us a great time of praise and worship today. Father, we love you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.